The moment my daughter asked me not to walk beside her, my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. My name is Grace, and for most of my life, I've worn second-hand clothes, not because I loved them, but because I had to. Life hadn't been kind to me after my husband passed away. I worked double shifts as a cleaner at a small private school just to afford my daughter Lily's education there. I wanted her to have the opportunities one never did. Lily was my pride and joy, smart, beautiful, and full of dreams. She always promised me that one day, she'd make me proud. And I believed her with every beat of my heart. But something changed as she grew older. Her friends came from wealthy families. They wore branded clothes, carried fancy phones, and talked about vacations I could never afford. Slowly, I noticed Lily's laughter fading when I picked her up from school. She stopped introducing me to her friends. Then one afternoon, it happened. I had just finished cleaning classrooms, still in my uniform, when I saw Lily and her friends outside the school gate. I waved and smiled, but she froze, her smile vanished. One of her friends whispered something and laughed. Lily looked away, pretending not to see me. I walked closer, hoping maybe she just didn't notice me. But before I could speak, she hissed under her breath, "Mom, please, don't come near me when my friends are around." It felt like the ground disappeared beneath my feet. All I could say was, "Okay, sweetheart." And I walked away before my tears showed. That night, I stayed up late sewing her old uniform to make it last another month. My fingers ached, but I smiled through the pain, because that's what mothers do. I told myself it was just a phase, that she'd grow out of it. But deep inside, I felt something changing, not in her, but in me. A part of my heart that once felt proud, now felt invisible. Still, I promised myself one thing. I'll never let her feel poor, not even for a moment. Little did I know, life was preparing a lesson neither of us would ever forget. The next day, I overheard a conversation that shattered everything I thought I knew about my daughter. Sometimes the words you hear by accident are the ones that hurt the most. The next morning, I went to Lily's school early. I had promised one of the teachers I'd clean the staff room before classes began. It was quiet, just the faint sound of students chatting outside the hallway. As I passed by the locker area, I heard laughter, familiar voices. Lily's voice. At first, I smiled. Hearing her laugh always made my heart lighter. But then I heard the words that froze me in place. "Oh my God, Lily," one of her friends giggled. "Was that your mom yesterday? The one in the janitor uniform?" Lily hesitated. Yeah," she said quietly. "She helps out at the school sometimes." "Helps out?" Another friend snorted. "You mean she cleans? That's embarrassing." The girls burst into laughter. And Lily didn't defend me. She didn't walk away. She just said, "Yeah, I know." Those 3 words sliced through me like glass. I stood there behind the corner, my hands trembling, my heart pounding so loud I was afraid they'd hear it. My daughter, the child I'd sacrificed everything for, was ashamed of me. I wanted to walk away, but my legs wouldn't move. I just stood there, listening as they joked about how poor I looked, how outdated my clothes were. Each laugh echoed inside me like thunder. When the bell finally rang and they left, I stepped into the hallway. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. Not there. Not where someone could see me. I quietly finished cleaning, like nothing had happened. But inside, something had broken. Quietly, deeply. That night, I made her favorite dinner, spaghetti with cheese and garlic bread. She came home late, said she had to study with her friends. She didn't even notice the meal waiting on the table. I sat alone, staring at the food that had gone cold, whispering to myself, "It's okay, Grace. She's young. She'll understand one day." But in my heart, I wondered, when? When would she see that every wrinkle in my hands, every worn-out dress, every sleepless night, was for her? The next week, fate decided to teach my daughter what my words never could, and it began with a single phone call. Sometimes life doesn't wait for you to learn a lesson, it teaches it the hard way. It was a Thursday morning when the phone rang. I remember because I was halfway through scrubbing the hallway floor at the school. My hands smelled of soap and dust, and I almost didn't answer. The voice on the other end was trembling. It was Mrs. Harris, the school principal. "Grace," she said softly, "there's been an emergency. Lily fainted during class. We've called an ambulance." My heart stopped. I dropped the mop and ran. I didn't even take off my gloves. The whole world blurred as I rushed through the corridors toward the nurse's room. When I reached, Lily was lying pale on a stretcher, surrounded by students and teachers. Her friends, the same girls who laughed about my uniform, stood nearby, whispering. When they saw me, their faces shifted from amusement to shame. I didn't care. I knelt beside Lily, brushed her hair away from her forehead, and held her hand. "Sweetheart, I'm here. Mama's here." Her eyelids fluttered open. "Mom," she murmured weakly. I smiled through tears. "Yes, baby. It's me." She looked confused. Maybe she hadn't expected me to be there so fast. But how could I not? She was my world. At the hospital, doctors said it was exhaustion. She hadn't been eating properly, skipping meals, stressing over exams. I stayed by her bedside all night, holding her hand while she slept. The next morning, when she woke, I tried to feed her soup. She stared at my hands, rough, cracked, with tiny cuts from cleaning chemicals. She said nothing, but her eyes softened for a moment. Still, she didn't apologize. And I didn't ask her to. On the third day, the doctor came in with a frown. He handed me a list. Tests, medicines, scans. My stomach dropped when I saw the costs. I knew I couldn't afford it. But I didn't let her see my fear. "Don't worry, sweetheart," I whispered, smiling. "Mama will handle everything." That evening, when she was asleep, I quietly left the hospital, went straight to a wealthy neighborhood nearby, and took on extra night cleaning jobs. I worked until dawn, came back before she woke up, pretending I'd been there all night. No one knew. Not even her. But fate was watching, and it was about to reveal my truth in a way I never expected. A week later, Lily followed me, and what she saw that night changed her forever. The truth always finds its way home, even when you've spent your whole life trying to hide it. A week after Lily returned from the hospital, things seemed normal again. She was quieter than before, more distant. I assumed it was just fatigue, or maybe guilt, though she never said anything. Every evening after dinner, I'd tell her I was going for a walk or to help a neighbor. But in reality, I was taking my cleaning supplies, putting on my faded jacket, and heading to a part of town where no one knew me, to clean office buildings at night. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid just enough to cover her hospital bills. That night felt no different. I left quietly, kissed her forehead while she pretended to sleep, and whispered, "I'll be back soon, my love." But what I didn't know was that Lily wasn't asleep. She had seen the dark circles under my eyes, noticed my trembling hands, and the new bruises on my wrists from scrubbing floors. Something in her heart told her I was hiding something. So, she followed me. She waited a few minutes, then slipped out the door, wearing her hoodie, staying far enough not to be seen. When I reached the office building, the security guard waved at me. "Evening, Grace. You're early today." I smiled politely, unaware that my daughter was standing behind a parked car just across the street, watching me. She saw me take out my worn gloves, bucket, and brush. She saw me kneel down and scrub the marble floors that shone under harsh white lights. She saw me smile at strangers who ignored me. And she saw, for the first time, the truth, that while she slept, I was working 2 jobs just to keep her dreams alive. Later, she told me she stood there for over an hour, frozen, watching me bend over to clean windows, wipe tables, and carry trash bags bigger than my body. Watching as I winced when I hurt my hand but kept cleaning anyway. When I finally stopped to rest, she could no longer hold back her tears. She covered her mouth and cried silently in the dark. I never saw her there that night. But I remember waking up the next morning to find her sitting quietly at the kitchen table, her eyes swollen and red. She looked at me for a long moment and whispered, "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" I froze, my heart sinking. She knew. I thought she'd be angry or ashamed again, but what she did next broke me completely. Sometimes the most painful truth becomes the most beautiful apology. When Lily whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" I froze. The plate in my hands nearly slipped. Her eyes were full of tears, not the kind that come from anger, but the kind that come when a person's heart breaks in silence. I tried to smile, pretending not to understand. "Tell you what, sweetheart?" She stood up, her voice trembling. "That you've been working every night, cleaning offices. That you come home at dawn just so I can have everything I want. I followed you, Mom. I saw everything." My hands began to shake. I didn't know what to say. I'd spent years hiding my struggles behind smiles, because I never wanted her to feel poor. I opened my mouth to explain, but she ran toward me and hugged me so tightly that my breath caught. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she sobbed into my shoulder. "I've been so blind, so cruel. I was embarrassed of you when I should have been proud." Her words melted every wall I had built inside me. I wrapped my arms around her and finally let the tears fall. Tears I had held back for years. "No, baby," I whispered, stroking her hair. "You don't have to be sorry. I just wanted you to have a better life. That's all I ever wanted." We stood there for what felt like forever, two broken hearts finding their way back to each other. Then she stepped back, wiping her tears, and said something that made me cry all over again. "From today, Mom, no more hiding. I don't care what anyone thinks. You've given me everything, and I'll never let anyone make you feel less again." That day, she skipped school and spent the whole morning helping me with chores. We cooked together, laughed, and talked like we hadn't in years. Later, she took one of my old dresses, the one I always wore for cleaning, and stitched a little heart near the collar. "It's a reminder," she said, smiling softly, "of your love, stitched into everything you do." I couldn't stop crying. That night, for the first time in a long while, I slept without setting an alarm. I felt peace. But the story didn't end there. Because Lily had one more surprise, something that would make the world see me in a way I never thought possible. A week later, she stood on the school stage, and what she said about me left the entire room in tears. The day my daughter spoke on stage, the same people who once laughed at me couldn't even lift their eyes. A week later, the school announced their annual Gratitude Day. It was a tradition where students could honor someone who changed their life, a teacher, a friend, or a parent. Lily asked me to come. I hesitated at first, afraid of the whispers, afraid of the same looks that once made me feel small. But she insisted. "Please, Mom," she said softly. "You have to be there. I'm doing this for you." So that morning, I wore my best dress, the same one I had stitched 100 times over. The one with the little heart Lily had sewn near the collar. When I entered the school hall, I could feel the stares. Some of Lily's classmates recognized me, the janitor, the cleaner, the woman they once mocked. But this time, I didn't look down. Because this time, my daughter was standing on the stage. She walked up to the microphone, holding a small piece of paper, but her hands were shaking. Then she looked straight at me, and I saw her courage ignite. "I want to tell you all about someone," she began. "Someone who taught me what strength, sacrifice, and love truly mean." The audience fell silent. For years, I was ashamed of her. I thought her old clothes made her less than others. But I was wrong. So wrong. My mom has worked harder than anyone I've ever known. She's cleaned this very school, scrubbed the floors we walk on, and still smiled every single day, just so I could stand here today. A few teachers lowered their heads. Some of her friends looked stunned. "I used to think she had nothing," Lily continued, her voice breaking. "But the truth is, she gave me everything. She taught me to stand tall, to be kind, and to never forget where I come from. And today, I just want to say, I'm proud to be your daughter." The hall erupted into applause. People stood up, clapping, some wiping tears. But I didn't see anyone except her. My little girl, standing tall, proud, and brave. When she finished, she ran straight to me, and this time, she didn't care who was watching. She hugged me in front of everyone and whispered, "I love you, Mom." And that hug, that single moment, washed away every wound her silence had ever caused. For the first time, I wasn't the invisible mother in worn-out clothes. I was her hero. That day changed more than just our relationship. It changed how the world saw us, and how I saw myself. Forgiveness doesn't erase the pain, it transforms it into love. After that day, everything felt different. The same hallways that once echoed with whispers now greeted me with smiles. Teachers who had walked past me without a word now said, "Good morning, Mrs. Grace." But none of that mattered as much as the change I saw in Lily. She began helping me with small things, folding laundry, cooking dinner, and sometimes, even coming along to my evening cleaning jobs, saying she wanted to understand what hard work really means. And she did. There were nights we'd walk home together under the dim streetlights, her hand holding mine, no longer out of obligation, but out of pride. She'd look at me and say, "Mom, when I graduate, I'm going to make sure you never have to work another night shift again." And every time, I'd smile and tell her, "Sweetheart, I don't mind working, as long as it's for you." But deep inside, I knew, the lesson she learned that night was worth more than any degree or title, because she had learned what love truly looks like when life strips away everything else. Years later, when she got her first job, she surprised me with something that made me cry all over again. A framed photo of us, from that gratitude day. Below it, she had written in her own handwriting, "To the woman who taught me that pride isn't in what we wear, it's in who we are." I hung it in our living room, right above the old sewing machine I still use. Sometimes when I look at it, I whisper a quiet thank you, not just for her, but for the pain that taught both of us so much. Because now I understand. We can't protect our children from the world forever. But we can love them enough to let the world teach them what we can't. And as I sit here in my same old dress, sipping tea, watching my daughter prepare for another day at work, I smile. I smile because I know she finally sees what I always hoped she would. That love, sacrifice, and humility are the most beautiful clothes a person can ever wear. This was my story. A story about pride, pain, and forgiveness. If you're a parent listening, never stop believing that love will find its way back. And if you're a child, never forget the hands that built your dreams. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of love become the greatest lessons in grace. Sparkling Heart.